All right. Got a mic working. Got a new webcam. Got a weird little yellow thing up at the top of the chat. I'm not sure what that is. It's gone now. Look at that new camera. I got a used Sony camcorder that I plugged in to Elgato Cam Link, and that's what we're doing right now. All right. Hey, everybody. There's so many wonderful people who've been chatting already. Thank you all for hanging out. Glad to be back. Trying the Pro mic today, but we still are having issues with it. I need to go buy a new, a little bolt thing right here. Oh, do you see that? That smiley is getting totally twisted in the chat, and I don't know why. Yeah, the picture quality in this thing is friggin' crazy. I'm very happy with it. So, oh, I definitely have great. There are quite a few. Oh, I just got a haircut, so it's hard to tell. There are quite a few. There are quite a few gray hairs in there. All right, so here's what we're doing. I have actually put grip tape around it. Wow, look at that. And the focus actually works on this one too. So I put grip tape around it, and it helped a little bit, but I need to put some more in. So, all right, so here's what we're doing today. Oh, you know what I wanted to do? I want to make sure that my go live button sent out the tweet. Yes, there we go. Cool. All right, so we're ready to go. Oh, you know what I was going to do real quick? I was going to do that thing where I take the notes as we go. So let me get that ready. It's been 2 weeks since I have done this, and so it's going to take a little bit of thinking to remember how this all works. Okay, let's pull you all back on. And, oh, you couldn't see that anyway because I had it on just on me. All right, focus. Yeah, functioning focus is pretty fantastic. All right, so what are we doing today? We are installing Laravel Nova on OnRamp. That's really the number one goal. We will see where it's going to go from there. Hey, look at that. Thanks, Synix Chaos. Get a little shimmy for that one. We are going to install Laravel Nova from scratch. So if somebody has never worked with Laravel Nova before, they'll have an opportunity to see what that looks like. And we actually need it because right now we're getting to the point where using PHP-based seeders for all of our content is just not really functioning, and it's getting more and more complicated, and at some point we just need to be able to edit the content directly in the site. Additionally, as soon as people can start checking off if they've completed something, we can't constantly keep reseeding those because then the foreign keys on their like kind of completion checklist items will be wrong. Because you'll say, hey, I checked off item 4, and then we reseed, and all of a sudden item 4 is now item 5. So the moment we allow people to interact with these things is the moment we have to stop using our entire current seeding system, and all changes in content instead have to happen in the database like a normal app. Best way to do that is Nova, so why don't we do a little bit of Nova? So the first thing you do with installing Laravel Nova, if anybody's not familiar with it, Laravel Nova is an admin panel generator kind of tool. It's not quite a CMS, it's not quite a generator, it's an in-between thing where you're making admin panels in code. And the simplest way to install it is through Composer, and it's not quite, thank you for subscribing, Zoltgura, if I got that right. So the easiest way to do it, you can't quite do a Composer require because it's an external repository that you actually have to specially link. So what you do, and like I said in my tweet, where there's no work has been done, thanks for following Robin Dirksen1, no work has been done off camera. So I have not touched Nova at all other than pulling up the docs before we got here today. So let's go into composer.json, and somewhere in here, I don't actually know where the canonical place is to put it. Sometimes I put it at the top and sometimes I put it at the bottom. I'm going to put it here today just because that's what I'm feeling like. We are going to now teach it that if you look for, basically go look here as a Composer repository. And so now we can come in here and then you can add this as a require element. Normally, some people like to add all their projects to composer.json like this. This is actually not the best way to do it. The best way to do it when you're not adding a special repository is to type composer, require, whatever the thing is, because Composer handles the require process better that way. But when you have to do something like this is actually the only way to do it. And I think one of the things that Composer Require does is it alphabetizes it for you. So let's do that ourselves. So we got Laravel Nova there, and one of the reasons for that is you run Composer Update here. You're not Composer updating just Nova, you're Composer updating the whole thing. I think we could just run Composer Update Laravel/Nova, but you know what? It doesn't hurt to run a Composer Update every once in a while. So let's just go do that and see what we get. All right, so far that's the only things we've had. Now, in order for Nova to function correctly, you have to authenticate against Nova. I think we might have to do it right here. And so the best way to do that is to create an auth.json file And so this composer update will probably fail because we haven't authenticated. It'll probably ask for my username and password, and they won't exist. By the way, I changed all of my colors in my terminal to be higher contrast. So I hope that helps everybody see it a little bit better. But as always, let me know if there's any other things I can do with the stream to make it a little bit easier to see. All right. So let's go into onramp over here, and we're going to touch auth.json. And auth.json, you get a nice little link here that teaches you how to do it. And you want to create a file. Trying to remember how the best to do an auth.json. I thought we had a pre-filled one. We don't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, thanks Jose, I'm going to go mute real quick. And I'm going to grab an auth.json from another project and then just blank out the password so you all can see what the syntax should look like. What is my last project that I used? I think I know which one. Yep. Okay, cool. So I will show it here and also try and remember to put this in the show notes. So let me take it and strip out the actual password first. Password here. All right, and let's throw that in the show notes, and then I will bring it back over where you all can see it. Ooh, it doesn't. Notion. There we go. Cool. All right, so I can now put it back on for y'all, and you can see it. So this right here is what an auth.json file looks like. And this password right here could be your actual password for logging into the Nova website, but also when you go into the Nova settings, you can go grab an API key. I can't show you how because then you would see my API key, but just go and log in the Laravel Nova website, go into your little thing where you could change your password, and down at the bottom there's a section that says something like API. So you basically are just going to open up this auth.json file. As you can see right here, right? Authentication required. So that's not how we're going to do it. So instead, you, set paste. That's not what I wanted to copy. Copy this right here, except that actually, oh, whatever. It broke my quotes. Oh, it didn't break my quotes. Yeah, it did break my quotes. And this is it. You do it like this, and then now when Composer tries to pull that thing down, it will pass it this information. So now I'm going to mute you all again, and I'm going to throw my actual password in there, and then hopefully I will remember to not actually cat this at any point later so that you all don't accidentally see my password, and then I have to change it later, which I would love to avoid. Okay, so I'm going to pull you all back. Oh, pull you all back on. I'm going to almost knock my vertical mouse off of the desk, as I am wont to do. All right, we're going to run a Composer update again. And I don't know if you hit Control-C in the middle of a Composer update. Did all of these updates fail and do they have to rerun or not? I'm not sure. Hey, Andre. English needs a better word for video mute. I agree. Censor is definitely not the right word. All right, there we go. So we now have Nova installed. So let's talk about this. Things we did. Created auth.json with our Nova API key. Installed Nova via Composer. All right, what's next? So you want to install it, and then you want to migrate with all the new tables. Jake says, I have issues with stopping Composer in the middle of an update, and sometimes that borks the cache sometimes. So if that ever happens, the easiest thing to do is just to rf the vendor directory. And sometimes it helps to type vendor correctly. Blackout might be a way, but the problem is Blackout seems to be more visual than audio. All right, so PHP Artisan, Nova install, and then this pushes out all the stuff basically into your Nova directory. And so let's take a real quick look about what was actually just generated. So if you go into app, you're going to see a Nova directory there, and you're also going to see a service provider, which ends up here. So your Nova service provider ends up here. Tlint doesn't like it because it's some of the indenting here is not the Titan defaults. I think that was it. Yep. Okay, cool. And then you also get some things under app/Nova. And these are basically, this is your base resource, and we'll talk about what those are in a second. And then your first resource, which is the user resource. And we'll walk through that in just a second as well. Okay. I wonder why this says it's not used. Oh, it's not that it's not used, it's that it's sorted wrong. Okay, cool. Let's walk through these both really quickly. Not just that, sometimes you need prefer source. Interesting. Clear cache, Beachcast, thanks so much. And thanks for hanging out, Beachcast. All right, so this is binding all of our basic routes. You won't need to customize this most of the time. So we have our authentication routes, password reset routes, and it's going to register those against your route service provider. So yeah, so Adam is saying this is one way to clear composer cache, and you can take a look at that link in the chat if anybody's interested. And then it registers a gate, and the gate is the thing that defines who can see Nova on the production site. Now, locally, it's not going to be an issue, but in production, what I'm going to do right now is basically, if you're me, then you get to use it, and everybody else, we will later define who actually needs to go in there. So we can actually do this right now and say allow non-mat admins, who don't exist right now. So also, oh, come on. Sometimes it really bothers me when they make it difficult. I want anything. Okay, add the is admin flag or roles to users. Allow non-mat admins to use Nova, and we'll probably have multiple levels of Novaing as well. And then this shows you basically the pages that are the cards, and cards are like little, chunks of little squares of data. Think about like a Bootstrap, card. They'll show up on your dashboard when you log in, and there's a help card that comes by default. And then you can also define how many dashboards there are. And by default, you're just going to get the basic Nova dashboard. We can add other ones later. And then in the left side, you're going to see all your resources, all your dashboards, and then you're also going to see all your tools. We can talk about those in a second. Don't worry about application services right now. Okay. So there's a lot going on when you first look at Nova, but let's just actually go log in. No, we want to go to onramp.test/Nova. And oh, you know what? We have to finish the rest of our commands. So phpr in migrate is going to migrate our database tables. What is our error? Did I make a typo? Oh, interestingly, T-Lint told me to get rid of Nova. Or it told me that Nova was sorted wrong. And I assumed that it was telling me to get rid of Nova, but it wasn't. And I didn't actually go look at the error it was giving me. So now let's bring it back. Okay, cool. So now we have these two tables added, which come from Nova. And now we should be able to log into Nova. You do have some other notes here. Make sure the Nova service provider is added to the providers array. And then this talks about if you put your models into a different directory, you need to make sure that the default user resource lives somewhere else. Okay, so let's go check to make sure that the Nova service provider is in config app.php. It is right there, Nova service provider, and then that's it. So now let's go to excuse me. Let's go to onramp.test/Nova. That was one of the things I was worried about, is that the Nova routes are going to get bound at the bottom. And the problem is our language route definition, routes.web.php, is going to catch all of them. So there's different ways to handle it. One of them is to add a regular expression right here that says match any locales except the word Nova. Another one is to actually bind the Nova route right here. Another one is in the Nova service provider, you can change the route that Nova is actually going to be accessible via. So I think what I'll probably end up doing is build the matcher here to make so that this locale does not actually go in front of Nova. I think that's my favorite way to do it. However, having you all watch me write a regular expression is not the way I want to spend our time today. So right now, we're just going to assume that this now allows it to pass through, and then later we'll write a regular expression. So let's go add a note for that. All right. And so now we should be able to go over here, and we should be able to see Nova this time. And the whole rest of the site is broken. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, no. So I assume that the Nova route is bound, but it is instead forwarding us over. Oh, you know why? We also have a middleware that, or is it the service provider, that basically says, hey, if you go to a locale that doesn't exist, then forward you over to a locale that does exist. Where is that, though? Is it a middleware? Anybody know off the top of your head? It's been quite a while since I wrote that whole thing. I've never worked with Nova and localized system. This is Divvy, D-I-V-V-Y, for citing the windows. So this is my first time running into this problem, and so it's just going to take me a second to remember where I did this and figure out what the best solution is going to be. I kind of think that this is what's getting hit right here. Something's trying to resolve the locale. It's discovering that the locale is not a valid locale, and then it's throwing this invalid locale exception. And when it throws this invalid locale exception, then it redirects you to the root. And so that being the case makes me think that we need to figure out what the best solution is going to be to allow Nova to basically bypass the entire concept of locales. There's dirty ways to do it and there's clean ways to do it, but the problem is the clean way to do it is to know more than I think I do right now. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to do it a dirty way, and then I'm going to think about it a little bit later. So basically we're going to say allow Nova pass through, and then see if there's a cleaner way. And one of the things I do with to-dos like this is I don't allow myself to merge something to master while there are still any to-dos. So this is a reminder to me later, think about this, but you don't have to think about it on the stream right now. So it's going to be something like this, you know, and then maybe something like that, you know. I don't know if that's going to break something, so let's just go take a look at see how that treats us and see if that was actually the problem. There we go. Yeah. So this is dirty, but what it's allowing us to say is don't worry about locales if you're under the Nova route. And so now this thing is just going to stop farting at us and throwing this invalid locale exception. And I'll think a little bit later about the best way to do it. So we can do this. We're logged into Nova. Okay, so this is what Nova looks like by default. Although I don't see the help card here, which makes me think we're getting an exception. Let's check it out. This is exactly what I was thinking. So we might start running into problems where the routes that Nova calls is running into our localization system, which makes very broad blanket expectations that everything is going to begin with a locale. And you see right here, the server responded with a 404 at /en, which makes me think that it made a request, and that request was redirected to /en. You should also whitelist Nova-API. All right, thank you. And again, this is not the cleanest way to do this. We'll figure it out later, but this is my first time doing Nova with localization. Hey, Zolt, you did it. That was the solution. And we were going to find that eventually, right? We were going to basically say, wait a minute, something's 404ing looking for /en. I bet that thing got forwarded over to /en because that's where you get forwarded to if you're accessing an invalid locale. And so the invalid locale was Nova-API. So Zolt, let us know. Oh, Marissa, you wonderful human being. All right, local regex to not catch Nova. So this, interestingly, is not a regex to not catch Nova. This is a regex to match just two characters, I think. And I'm going to be very, very, very transparent with everyone here. I am a total goober at Nova. So this is both two characters. I'll throw this up on the screen. This is both two characters, but some of our locales, as Marissa's catching here, aren't just en. They're en-us, and that's not actually true, but it's something like that, where I think I remember the one was Portuguese, Brazil, I don't know exactly what it was, or something like that. And so she's doing one where, I'll put it up a little bit bigger, looks like this. And so in my incompetence, you've got two characters that can be any alpha, and then optionally you can add an underscore and then two more characters. It's not a dash like I was typing, it's an underscore. So yep, Marissa says it's PT, and then two characters, and then underscore two more. So there is still one more part of regex that is going to be painful, but let's just go through it together because, hey, if this is all about everybody seeing how incompetent Matt is and getting rid of their, what's it called, their imposter syndrome, is the best way to do it. So Laravel routing, the thing is, it's not, almost every single time I've ever worked with regex, there's been a question of, do you have the correct slashes and everything? Thank you for following Happy Fruit, and thanks for hanging out, Larry Bell. Welcome. So one of the problems that I always have with regex is that each syntax does or doesn't want you to pass in the quotes or the slashes or the whatever else around it. And so this right here, it's not that match. There's a different match. This is another one of the ones, WRTJ. I don't know what that means. Writing regex is 90% of my job. Oh, great. So there's a way to do regular expression matching, but I'm trying to remember what it is. So if anybody knows off the top of your head, let me know. I'm only going to sit on this for about 2 more minutes. So match is not it, because match matches the verbs. Trying to remember what it is, where you basically pass a parameter at the end that says only match it. It's like this right here. Okay, cool. Where? Regular expression constraints. So let's just try it. And the question here will be, all right, so where, and also can you do where in a group? So it's going to be, I think it was a parent, yep, okay. So where, locale, bang, and then, or arrow, and then it's going to be our regular expression here. This is what I said. What is what you said? Mubs, welcome, and thank you for subscribing, my friend. All right, back to here. So we're grabbing this one, and this was the one where I asked the question of whether or not we're going to want these slashes here, because that's what I said. Sometimes you do and sometimes you don't. So let's see what happens right now. Does that break everything? Call to member function where on a null. So my guess is that the where is different on a route group than it is on a route. And again, I don't want to get stuck here for too long, but let's see. Oh, interesting. Look at this. This I did not know. You can globally constrain a given locale by this and define it here. And I think that's really clever. So in our route service provider, we can actually define that anytime we're looking for the pattern locale, we want to match it this way. I like that a lot. So let's grab that right there. And instead of throwing it in here, I don't want to go too far on this because I said this one was going to be about Nova. Thanks, no slashes. Okay, so this is the route service provider we're looking at here. It's going to be the boot method right here. We're going to do this. And we're going to say anytime I'm matching this locale method, I'm going to grab this with no slashes and try this. And then now in our routes.web.php, we should be able to have nowhere and still have it potentially map. And I didn't know this existed at all. That's very cool. I love when things like this exist. You didn't even know they were there. All right, so in theory, it's working. Hey, Marissa, thank you so much for your help on that. I really appreciate it. So we got that snuck in there. It's nice and good. So let's add a note about this. Things we did, we whitelisted locale to only match correct form. So basically A to Z2 or A to Z2 underscore A to Z2. We can take that out of things to do later. Come on. Great. All right, so let's go back to where we were. Do we need this still? I think we do. All right, so we are back in Nova. We are in our first ever Nova thing. And so one of the things you see when you get into Nova is you see this help card here, and it just kind of gives you information about using Nova. And then you get your resources. And the only resource we have defined is the user resource. And so what you get off of this user resource is basically it's binding directly to an eloquent model. Thielen is complaining because we prefer using that syntax. And then this is what's its primary title. And so we say it's going to be the name field. All right. And then which are the searchable columns off of it, which by default are filled as ID, name, and email. And then which fields are actually going to show up here. So if we add a role or something like that and we want it to show up as a column here, we'll throw them in here. But by default, what you get here is actually very good. And then when you actually go into the person, that's when you can ask these questions of what filters can we... so the filters would be on here. They'd be in that, that drop down there. So we can make custom filters and only show me admins or only show me people who've completed or whatever. And then you get into the cards, which are on the page itself. So various cards here where we can, group segments of the user's information that we're editing here. and then lenses and actions. A lens is also sort of a way of looking at the thing. So a lens is a little bit like this page, but a little bit more customized. And then an action is something where if I want to click on this and be able to do things, an action would be basically a button. I could say archive or make admin or something like that very easily, rather than having to go in and edit them and add the, the is admin field or something like that. So why don't we add our first resource other than the default resource? Actually, why don't we first commit what we've done? Primary title is used when you search for these entities when the title or field should be shown. Doesn't have to do anything with the table as far as I know. Yep. So the if I said that incorrectly. This title right here, I was only pointing to show that it's this column. This title is what's showing for example, if you're looking for this right here, the title is what's shown right here, but it's also shown when you're relating things to users or whatever else in their own edit fields. And so, for example, if you were in something else that had a foreign key relationship to users and you were typing in the dropdown here to find Noel Welch, which is me, then that would be whatever thing is shown as the label for that particular item when you're looking at it. So let's go to GitHub Desktop real quick and just see what we did. We actually have made a lot of changes, not all of which are appropriate to stick around, but that's okay. We will catch those in the pull request form. All right, so these are all just published things from Nova, so we can just kind of just call those good. This is the Nova configuration where you can define what the name of our site is. Why don't we actually go in there? Config nova.php. What's our name? It's onramp. And the URL is basically what's the base URL underneath everything, and this is perfectly fine to be here because we handle people going to the root and forward over them to EN. This is where Nova lives, so if we decided to fix all this by changing the Nova route, like /en/Nova or something, this is where you would customize it. Some people always change this from the default, so it's harder for people to sniff what thing you're using. However, this code base is open source, and I've streamed the whole thing. So if people want to know where Nova is, they know where Nova is. So there's no good there. You can change which guard with authentication guard Nova uses, and lots of other custom stuff in terms of like the middleware and stuff like that. We don't need to worry about any of that right now. We're good. All right, config app.php. We added Nova service provider. Composer is updated to add Nova. Auth.json needs to be not committed. Oh goodness, that would have been not good. So we'll just throw it down at the bottom here. It's going to be auth.json, and so every person who is working in this project in the future will have to have their own auth.json file, or they will have to just type their username and password whenever they run Composer update. Route service provider with Marissa's regular expression. Thank you again. Nova service provider we already looked through. The user resource, the base resource. We modified these hackily to allow Nova and Nova API through. I added a comma because it was missing, and I added auth.json to get ignore. All right, so install Nova and adjust localization to allow Nova routes. Let's push it up. Great. Okay, so the next thing we could do is try and find what is our simplest possible resource and create a resource for it. So I think our simplest possible resource is probably the track. The track has the least related information compared to all the other resources we have. So let's say we wanted to modify our tracks, rename them or something like that. So let's just try making a resource called track. And I can't remember whether you're supposed to put the full namespace in there. So let's just try it out. My guess is that there's parameters that you can pass in there. What's the way that you say, do you say help make resource? Is that what it is? Yeah, okay. So pass in dash collection. No, we don't want a collection. Yeah, I guess you can't pass it in. So I don't know why I thought you could. So artisan make resource track. All right, so we've got a track resource that just showed up. Why is your iTerm state your name at Launchpad McQuack? That's the name of my machine. Wait, where did track.php show up? App HTTP resources? Oh, make resource is an API resource, not a Nova resource. Let's see what we've got. It's probably Nova : resource is what it is. Yeah, okay. Help Nova resource, not make resource, because I know how to do things. Let's get rid of that one. Okay. That's what I thought. Dash dash model equals model. So what we want to do is artisan Nova resource. It's been a while since I've started a new Nova project from scratch, so it's good to kind of remember the learning curve here. So you want to name it track, and then we want to say the model equals app/track. Thank you. All of my machines are named after Disney characters. All right, so just like we saw before, we have a resource that relates to, all right, so that was not the way to do it. Let's do it the right way. So it seems to assume that you're already under the app directory, so let's do this. I always forgot that you needed to escape it, but it looks like it already prepends that. So let's see what happens when you do that. You get app/track. Okay, cool. So again, I prefer referring to the class this way. Okay, and then the single value that should be used to represent it. I believe tracks have a name. Yep, tracks have a name, so we want to use name. Searchable things, we want to have the name be searchable, and we're really just modifying this to have that same kind of base level of usefulness that we saw from the other one. So let's go take a look at our Nova resource for the user and our Nova resource for the track and kind of see what similarities we have. So these fields show up by default in the user resource to kind of both give us a useful user resource, but also to show us what's possible with Nova. So we're not going to have a gravatar, but we will have a name. So let's throw a name in there. And that's really all the track has right now. There are relationships that we can talk about a little bit later, but really right now, a track is just a name. So let's just try this and see how it treats us. What else do we need to do in order to get tracks to useful? The moment you add a resource, it gets added here. Let's click on it. And, oh, app Nova text not found. That was because I copied over the definition of this text thing without actually importing the class. And this is going to be Nova fields text. Refresh, and there we go. So those are our three tracks. And so we can make all sorts of changes to these, but in essence, the main thing we would do is say WordPress developers. You know, there you go. Cool. Now we got the three of them. We go back to tracks, and now we've got WordPress developers. So it's the simplest stuff here. So the next thing we could do is relationships, but relationships are a little bit complicated. So we're actually going to throw in a couple of our other resources real quick to make them relatively easily editable before we get into resources or to relationships. So also you can't relate something to something without making the resource for it. I will note that we don't want to go too far down this direction because we have an active conversation happening on the GitHub issues right now about whether the ways in which modules and resources and skills will all relate to each other, and we need to resolve that before we build out their Nova pages too far, but you can always just change things afterwards, so it's not that big of a deal. Okay, so we will go make a resource for modules. Okay, so just like we did with the track, we'll come in here. We will, Nova resource module.php. Did I not create it correctly? Nova, oh, because it's not Nova resource, it's just Nova module. Okay, cool. So again, /app/module class. We want to come in, a module has a name. We want name to be searchable, and let's go look at modules and see if there's anything else we want searchable. Name it a slug. I guess we can make slug searchable. Wouldn't hurt too much. And interestingly, oh, this is going to be interesting. Look at that. Create modules table. How does Nova handle translated fields? It might not. This might be an opportunity for us to make pull requests either against the Spatie package or to make some requests to the Nova folks to add that kind of stuff. So let's just take a look. I actually have 1 second, everybody. I have a question from my wife. I'll be right back. Is it JSON field? Yeah, but it's not JSON. It's JSON that represents a translation. So it's a little bit different. So we'll see. Oh no, I totally knew I was still on screen. Yeah, I mean, I figured like, what else am I going to show y'all? You can just look at what I'm doing. Thanks, Susanna. Okay, so let's see what happens when we create a field for this translated thing. Talent whistle while you work. Thank you. So let's just add name and slug real quick. And then we'll kind of work on how. So my guess is going to be it doesn't work. We throw in the text for the name, and we throw in the text for a slug, and name's going to fart because it's expecting text. Instead, it's getting JSON, or it just spits out the text as JSON unanalyzed. But it's possible that it's using some getters, and so it actually might just work magically. Let's go look. All right, go over to modules, import text, of course, just like last time, out in Nova text, and then see what we get. Oh my goodness, look at that. So Nova is smart enough to be using Eloquent to get the accessor, and it says, oh great, this is it. Now I bet you that if we were to set our locale to Spanish, you would actually see the Spanish name in there, which is really interesting. And that does make a note to me that we need to make this name editable. See, that's the problem right there. Thank you for following. There is no try. Love the Star Wars jokes. So obviously we can't have somebody editing this and then saving this JSON because that will break everything. So that's going to definitely be, the translation aspect is going to make this whole thing a lot more complicated, but that's okay. Somebody has probably figured it out before, and if not, that will be an opportunity for us to maybe make a custom Nova package or something like that, field type, but it probably already exists, honestly. Let's actually go see. Translatable field, adds a translatable field for the Spotsy Laravel translatable package. Take a look at that. Already exists. I love it. Oh, you people are so wonderful. All right. So that's what we're going to use for those. All right, so let's actually pull this in. Well, hold on. Let's get everything else working in the module, and then we will pull that in. All right, we got a slug. We've got a name. We got a slug. We got a name. We can edit the slug. The name is wrong because it needs to be a translatable. All right, go team. So let's now pull this package in. So composer require Mr. Monat, Nova Translatable, and then you add in this field just like this. You have to have the has translations trait. You should go to public translatable with all the names and attributes you want to make. I think we have that already. That's how we made it translatable in the first place. And you need to make their text, make sure those translatable attributes are text or JSON, which we have already done. Defining locales. This right here, we may have to import these locales over from the place we're storing them, which is fine. Or we could run this like in an app service provider somewhere. We can pass this in directly to the field, but by default, let's just see if we can have this just pull the definition out of our locale class. All right, cool, that works. So let's replace this text for name with a translatable. And I'm not exactly sure how it's going to handle things like rules, so for right now, we're just going to ignore them. Nova resource. Do you mean Nova resources? Nova resource. I'm not sure what you mean. If you're talking about like 10 minutes ago when I meant to type make resource instead of Nova resource, then you're absolutely right. And you might be watching the playback and putting comments live. So I'll assume that until you tell me otherwise. Okay. So what we need to do is define our locales and config translatable. Config translatable. So it looks to me like this thing is going to be reading that, but we're not using it right now. So let's give it a look. My guess is that the Spotsy translatable package gives you the option of this, but it doesn't require it, whereas this plugin actually requires it. So let's go here, throw in our locales, and then we want to pull these locales out of our, I think it's in the locale class. Yep, locale locales. So what we want is this array exactly. So we don't want slugs. We don't want as valid. We want language for locale, so we need a new method that doesn't exist. So let's just call this function locales. This locales might be better to be named all. Actually, let's make it all for now. And then it's going to basically return this locales. All right, and then from here we want to say new app localization locale all. and see how that treats us. All right, let's just go real quick, check our tests, and see if we've broken anything yet. We probably have, at least through one of these things. Great to see you again. We'll catch you. Thanks for hanging out, Lee. Syntax error. Yeah, so interestingly, I noticed this earlier. If anybody is bored, would you go take a look at line 167 in the database seeds learn.php file? I run this error like 2 minutes before we went live, and so I didn't have the chance to go fix it. It says unexpected comma, expecting semicolon. So hopefully if you pull down master right now, this is just a little typo in the syntax there that I didn't catch. So if anybody's bored, and don't worry about it if you're not bored, go fix that for me. But otherwise, our tests seem to be looking great. So, okay, is it worth moving the locales to config instead of the class prop for config cache purposes? That's a interesting question. I don't think that this is going to keep config cache from being able to cache the output of this. So I think it's going to be fine. But you know, if we discover that's not the case, then we can always talk about moving it. And this can pull it out of this instead. That we can flip it over if we want. But right now, I think we're going to be okay in this. All right, cool. So this makes the name not look right, so that makes me suspect that it's not configured correctly. But let's go take a look. Now that is friggin' cool. I like that a lot. So let's look at our basic testing module and give it something in, you know, I speak enough German to say some things, but not basic testing. So let's just say, you know, let's make it look very German. Oops, where's my A? That's German, right? Just remove that line and it appears to fix the learn.php. Okay, so there must be an extra ending semicolon. Seeds, thanks Marissa. Learn.php, so it's line 167. So somehow indentation got off here, and that was the problem. So let's see, is it really clear if we look here where the indentation should be? So we're at 2 dents there, 2 dents there. This one, I think these ones just got indented in too far. That's my guess of what happened. I don't know how that happened, but man, who knows? But if that fixed it, then all we have to do is just reformat it later. Illegal string offset name. Okay, I don't think that just that alone didn't fix the problem. So again, I'm not going to waste our time on this right now. So okay, cool. So, all right, we got our German. Let's see if it sticks around well. All right, great. So we've got our German translation or English translation. I don't love the fact that we don't get to... Oh, this is cool. You even see it in the preview version. Very nice work, Mr. Monat, Luca. I really like that a lot. Okay, so... Oh, what I was saying is I don't like the fact that on the listing... we don't see the name. And let's see if we get any more information about that in here. Single line option. By default, the input field instead of use a text here. If you change a single line, you can add the single line. Yeah, I mean, we don't need it. It's just a name, right? So let's go in here and use the single line option. We don't need the tricks editor. Okay, by default, the locale used when displaying the field in index view is determined by apt-get locale. To override this, you can use the index locale. That's interesting because I'm pretty sure that we should have a locale of en right now, but because don't you get to do a fallback locale in config? Yeah, so the locale should be set to en here, and it should be pulling the en version there. So we'll try this right here where it says index locale of en, but we shouldn't have to be doing that right now. So I'm kind of surprised, and maybe we found a bug there. Let's just take a look. Oops, refresh this one. Yeah, so that shouldn't be necessary. No worries, Marissa. Again, don't merge to master with to-dos in it, but also don't waste your time on streams hacking on things that aren't necessarily necessary. All right, line 161 of learn.php is missing an opening bracket. Thank you so much for taking a look at this, because this way we can get done with this work today with PHP unit actually happy. All right, so this was learn, C learn.php, line 161. It's missing, oh, look at that, missing an opening bracket, just like you said. Perfection. Thank you so much. All right, so let's merge. Actually, you know what? Let's fix that on master. All right, so what have we done? Actually, let's go to GitHub Desktop. Or real quick fix that on master and then merge that master into here. So we added translatable. Add Nova Translatable field and use it for module name. All right, go over here, and then we're going to go check out master real quick. We're going to make that fix on learn.php. Oops, sorry, git checkout. I'm trying to stop using my shortcuts. Git checkout master. We've got a whole bunch of things that, oh man, okay. I think I can just, yeah, I'll just ignore that one. Uh-oh. Did I break something? Why is something calling all? Oh, I was modifying the translatable.php in the vendor instead of in the local config. So, of course, that didn't work. Let's undo that. And now it'll work fine. Okay, great. So let's go back to our branch, mes/install Nova, and let's fix this. Are we falling back to en locale now? We are, because the en locale, the fallback locale should always be the one that's defined in config app.php. And that right now is set to en, right here, as is the fallback locale. So, all right, so what we just ran into there, we ran into multiple things, but first of all, let's actually merge master. Okay, great. Now we should have that PHP unit thing fixed, but we'll need to real quick go back and add in config translatable.php. I don't know why we have a custom fallback locale in here when we already have one in config app.php, but I'm not going to fuss about it too much. Okay, here we go. Everything's working again. So what did we just change? We so just remember GAC right here that I keep using. I'm going to try to do it is git add everything and then git commit with a message. And so I just shortcut that to GAC because I do it all day long. So the message is here. We customize translatable package to use onramp locales. Okay, so tests pass. Nova works, falls back to English, shouldn't, but it's okay. I left a or we shouldn't have to customize it here, but it's okay. I left a note in the to-do. All right, so now we have this really clever thing, and I'm really grateful for Luca for making that. We got our slug, and now let's see. In 11 minutes, can we do a relationship? Oh, are you all seeing that? Failed to connect to chat server. Try reloading the page. Okay. That's annoying. Which is weird because that it is showing the latest. All right, how do I fix that? Can I hit as a refresh button? Refresh cache of page. Okay. Hopefully the next chat message somebody sends will show back up in the chat. I don't know why I was showing that error or how long. Thank you for following R1SSS. I need to switch up that thing, so thanks, Susanna. Yep. All right, we're back. All right, in 11 minutes, 10 minutes, in 10 minutes, can we make these things relate to each other? The big question is, what do we use to have a track relate to a module, and is it going to be one of the harder ones? Because if so, it might actually be worth not working on one of the more complicated ones, but instead on one of the simpler ones. So app track.php has many modules. Okay, let's just try it. I don't think we'll have that much trouble. So basically, when you come in here in the Nova docs, when you get down far enough, you're going to see the basics, but then fields. And fields is really the biggest kind of place where you're going to do your initial customization. You make the resources, and then you make a field for all of your individual columns. And so here's all the basic fields. You got avatars and all that kind of stuff, dates, uploads, and you can get way more at novapackages.com. But then you move down to the relationships files. Okay, so has many, right? So that's a simpler one. We start here. And so what we're going to do is make a has many for the thing. When defining has many, use the plural form of the relationship. And this is going to be based on inferring basically this right here. So you're basically going to say whatever the relationship is defined in your Eloquent model, do that same thing here. So let's go to our resource for track. Oh, again, I keep doing that. Nova track.php. And we're going to add a new one down here, has many, for resources. Typing is hard. Typing is hard. All right, and then this time we're going to remember to import it. And let's see where that gets us on the track resource. All right. Access to undeclared static property, app Nova resource model. So this is expecting us. Why is this undefined? Can I not? Nova resource. Oops. Nova. Oh, awesome. So we have a problem. The problem is that Nova calls its base thing resources, and we have a thing called resources. Thankfully, Jonas, yes, you're right. It should be modules, but we are going to run into a problem that we have an element in our thing called resource. And so we're going to have to figure out how to handle the fact that the base Nova thing is called a resource. My hope is that we can just name this something else, because this is our class. And so we can have all of our things basically saying like base resources, something like that, hopefully. Thankfully, this is just, for today, this is just a typo. I should have made this modules, not resources, right? But that could make life interesting later. So, but let's see how this treats us for now. All right, unknown column, modules, track ID, and where clause. And this was where I was thinking, I think that the relationship between a track and its modules is actually not standard, the way we set it, resource-ish. And so I don't think our create module table. Yeah, it's not actually I think it's a many-to-many. And so I think so I'm trying to move as slowly as I can. Sorry, everybody, for rushing. It's hard to both want to solve something quickly and then also explain it well. So I struggle with that sometimes. So you're going to see a module track table right here. And so this basically says the relationships between modules and tracks, as it expects it to be here, that there's a track ID column on the modules table, which would be like a one-to-many. But this isn't a one-to-many, it's a many-to-many, which means we were using the wrong one. And so the interesting thing is, the many-to-many relationships in Nova, let's see. It may, so like I said, so if anybody hasn't been following us the whole time, we went back and forth about whether a lot of the different relationships in OnRamp were polymorphic many-to-many or polymorphic one-to-many, or many-to-many non-polymorphic. And I think what we ended up with was a little bit less than standard implementations. I kind of am surprised because I didn't think this was one of them. So let's just step back for a second. Has many, right? Belongs to many. This is, you know what? This might actually just be wrong. We might just not have used it yet. I think that's what it is. I don't think this is as many. And I was just looking at it being like, I feel like this is the wrong one. Let's see. Have we pulled tracks off of here? Yeah. Okay. So I think it's actually going to be belongs to many on both sides. So let's just try it. And my gut says that this thing right here we wrote, but we never actually used, which means we haven't tested it either manually or in an automated way. So we're going to go in here and say, let's assume that I wrote that and didn't test it, and we were just saying, oh yeah, that's a thing that we're going to add later. And let's assume that this is actually going to be belongs to many, and see how it treats us. And if that doesn't work, we got 5 minutes left today, and I will figure out what I was doing wrong. What's most likely, honestly, is that somebody will figure it out in the YouTube replay and then leave me comments that will sit around for the rest of my life telling me, wasn't it super obvious to you? And I'll go, no, it wasn't super obvious to me, but thank you for making me feel like an idiot. Man. Thanks, man. I'm very new to Nova. This is very helpful. How fast you're through problems in your head. Well, thank you. I would, if I were working through fast, this one would be done. And one of the things that we've all learned here is that, oh, you know what? Okay, because these belongs to many, like I said, needs to. So let's assume, basically, if I were really someone who was helpful and inspirational here, I would understand the differences here better. Okay, this is what it was. Yeah, so I was right. The problem was that I had written that has many on the track without actually using it, which is why you shouldn't do that. And we were probably building out the track one day, and I said, oh yeah, I'll just throw these in here, forgetting at that point that was a many-to-many, not a one-to-many. And now this morning I opened it up and I said, oh, it must be a one-to-many because there's a has many there. But it's really just because I typed it and never tested it. And so that kind of it put me down the wrong road, right? I thought it was breaking because of some other reason, and because I was just forgetting the syntax. I actually had the syntax right in my mind, and that code was wrong, and that led me down the wrong way. Working on camera is about 3x harder. Oh my God, y'all have no idea. Thank you so much, Stefan. Really appreciate it. Have a great day. All right, so 3 more minutes. So what we can see here is this is what it looks like when you have a relationship in these. So your track, you go into your individual track, and you can now see which modules are attached to that track. And then you can go into that module itself, and we can also later define like which pivot fields we have in these and stuff like that. But this is really cool because you can now also attach other modules to this track. You can detach this some of these modules from this track. So lots of interesting stuff you can do. I can't remember. I think if you see, this is detach, not delete. And so we can attach and detach things here, and we can actually search. Let's say you had like a couple hundred of them. You can say, well, which of these do I actually want to see? And then it filters it down right there. So really clever user interface things that you get basically for free out of Nova, assuming you actually understand how relationships work in Laravel. And then the last thing you could do is you go over to the module and you can do the inverse, and you can pray that you are less dumb than you were 10 minutes ago, and and try it out. So let's try the exact same thing on modules. Can we say belongs to many tracks? Boom. And so now we can say, well, what if one of these modules is attached to multiple tracks, which happens often? For example, basic testing shouldn't just go for WordPress developers. It should also go for front-end developers. And it should also go for new to programming. All right, so now let's go back to our modules. We were on basic testing. Let's take a look at it. And now basic testing is attached to all of them, just like that. Frickin' magic. I love it. Okay, let's go make some episode notes. Created resources for modules and tracks. The tracks modules relationship. All right, we created resources, modules, and tracks. We related the modules and tracks resources. We brought in Nova Translatable package to make it easy to edit translatable fields in Nova. That might have been everything we did. Yep. Thank you for following Muskrat Mike. A little shimmying shack for you. Relate tracks and modules in Nova. Fix track module relationship. Great. So last thing we do is we run our tests. Boom. Thank you for following Novalis. So the tests pass. We have Nova functioning. We've got notes for what we did. We will not merge this. And actually, let's say another thing to do. Fix all to-dos and then merge. So I won't merge this up until I clear out all those to-dos real quick, and then I'll push it up. Next week on Tuesday, I will be doing first entry in a new series where I start pair programming with someone who's a little bit newer at Laravel than I am, and we'll work on something new together, and they'll ask me questions. And then next Friday, we'll get back into Nova. So I have some other plans for what we're going to do in Nova, but I would love for all y'all to come with questions. What do you want to learn about Nova? What have you never done before? And if nobody has any questions, then what we'll do is just continue building out the rest of the resources and also set up user roles so that other people can get into Nova. Once we're done with that, then we'll be able to actually start administering the relationships and all these things. Thanks for following Happy467. And that's going to be great. So thank you all for hanging out. Let me remember all the things I do at the end. I pause on me. You see the high fidelity of my new camera, although it's totally not centered. Monday, not Tuesday. Yes, next Monday. Thank you. Next Monday, and Monday is actually going to be not at my normal time. Monday will be, I think, at 2:45 Eastern instead of 11 Eastern, and then Friday will be back at 11 Eastern. Spassy has a translatable package for Nova as well. Okay, cool. So yeah, I think that's it for today. So thank you all so much for hanging out. I love it. Also, I'm trying to put out a YouTube video every Monday that is more just kind of me talking to the camera. And so if you don't subscribe on YouTube, even if you're just Twitch follower, go subscribe on YouTube at youtube.com/Matt Stauffer, because you'll get notifications about all those as well. I will not tell your boss at all that I was here during work, that you were here during work. Okay, so now remember, what are all the outro things? See you, and some music that you all can hear.